Welcome into Insight into Leadership. Today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Eugene Gargaro, who is the chairman of the board of the Detroit Institute of Art. Welcome to the program. How are you today?
Very nice to be here, Terry. I'm fine, thank you.
Well, we are here today to talk about the DIA. It's an institution that's been in this city for how many years? Could you talk about that?
We're in our 127th year now.
Tell me about that. 127 years, uninterrupted. What does it mean to the city of Detroit?
Well, it means a great deal to the city, to the counties that surround us, and to our entire region. It really is the cultural centerpiece for our region.
So, you know, when I was in elementary school, that's the first thing that the teacher wanted to do. And yes, as a youngster, we said, no, we don't want to do that. But now, when you get to be my age, start thinking, oh my God, what a wonderful experience. Could you talk about that in the community? What does that mean, for kids, How does it help them?
It's so multifaceted, the answer to the question. Primarily, it's educational mission. Everything that we do at the DIA is focused on education. And I know you've been there when the museum has been surrounded by yellow school buses, and youngsters
which is a wonderful sight.
Of all ages are just in awe of walking in the museum. But it's very user-friendly. It's become, over the past 10, 15 years, very community-oriented. So not just youngsters, but people of all ages have come to really enjoy the museum experience there.
In the past, people, the state used to fund it, the city used to fund it, so we weren't worried we will get the best exhibit, and we need to talk about what exhibit that came in that enriched our life. But now that changed. Could you talk about that?
Well, I have firsthand knowledge of that, Terry. 10 years ago, or maybe 12 years ago, I chaired the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. And you're referring to a time when Michigan was much better off financially.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And in those days, the legislature would award $25 million annually to be awarded throughout Michigan to deserving arts and cultural organizations. In those days, the DIA received $10, $12, $14 million for operations. At the same time, the city of Detroit had been very helpful over the years in providing operating support, capital project support. So we enjoyed that partnership with the state and the city for years. Recently, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, as you know, both the city and the state have had some significant financial challenges. That support has disappeared. So now we have relied heavily on foundations in our area and some phenomenally generous individuals.
But that's not enough. That's not even, could you talk about what is the budget? Because that is really, if you operate a world class, this is not a state, institution. This is a world class institution. What does it take to operate it?
Well, it's more than that. It's internationally recognized as one of the great museums in the world. We're very fortunate to have it right here in our city of Detroit.
There's a jewel.
It is. And 7 or 8 years ago, we had a budget that would have approximated $34 million a year annually. Given what's going on in the business community, the nonprofit community, we've had to do the same thing, unfortunately, reduced our employment roles by almost a third. Our budget's gone from $34 million to $25 million. That's the unfortunate news. The wonderful news is you can't tell that today when you visit the museum. It's still that memorable experience, and that's why we're seeking to go back to the public on August 7th.
Because it cannot continue to operate that way. Look at the Science Center. It's kind of like it was operating based on philanthropy.
Yes.
But that's not the way to run a business.
Well, it isn't your typical business model that you would want to rely on for a long period of time. Fortunately, given the decline over the years in state and city support, we've been able to do a significant fundraising job, but that no longer is possible either.
Yeah, see, I travel internationally. I look at the Louvre and I look at the DIA, and I don't see any differences of the quality. I mean, there is different pieces, but the quality is not there. And I see how it's funded by the public in France, but it's not funded. But the board of directors realized the same thing as I realized, that it needs more than philanthropy. So could you talk about what's the new initiative that you're proposing and how does it help the community?
Yes, I'd be happy to give you a little background there. 2 or 3 years ago, we met as a board and formed a special strategic planning committee. Okay. And given what was going on around us, as you point out, in the business and nonprofit community, we looked ahead and decided we needed to do some forward planning. The Detroit Zoo at about that time had a very successful, well-organized, well-executed millage. We looked at that model.
And rightly so.
And rightly so. Terrific example of why the public should support our institutions. We looked at that model, Terry, and thought we are a great community resource. We've had a long history of public support. Now with this confluence of the financial crisis and what's going on in the state and the city, we thought this would be a very good time, given what we've accomplished at the museum since the grand opening in 2007, go back to the same wonderful people who have supported us in the past and make our case. And on August 7th, 4 weeks from today, we hope that the voters in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb will all vote yes. It's a nominal annual millage. I prefer to call it an investment in our future.
It is investment. It's such a small investment. So if you have a house of $150,000, what would the cost for the individual to pay a year?
It's 2/10 of a mil on a residence that has a state equalized value of $100,000. That would be $20 a year.
$20. That's a cup of coffee, less than a cup. If you go to Starbucks, you would pay more than that and that's a year for a jewel in the city to continue.
Well, the economics, as you point out, are hard to debate. The good news part of this, though, is when the citizens in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb approve the millage, then they'll be able to come to the museum for 10 years
for free.
Of admission charge.
That is amazing. That's wonderful.
So you'll recoup your annual investment in the museum on one visit with your family.
So all what they have to do is show an ID and they come in if they are from Oakland, Wayne, and well, could you tell me on the ballot, is it going to say vote for the DIA? Because I want to make sure when the people go and vote, they vote for the right millage. So could you tell me, let's say in Wayne County, what would it say in Oakland County? What would it say in Macomb County? What would it say?
Well, it should say the same thing in all 3 counties, and it does. But in all 3 counties, the Board of Commissioners in each of those counties has established an art authority. That authority, with its own separate independent Board of Directors, is charged with collecting the millage each year. And then with the DIA, we've contracted with the authorities in the 3 counties for services. And those services run the gamut from student outreach, senior transportation, a whole menu of similar services that we're going to provide in exchange for the investment the citizens are making. And
so on the ballot would say, vote for Wayne County Art Authority millage.
Correct.
And vote for Oakland County millage. And vote for Macomb County Art Authority millage.
Correct.
I just want to make sure, because if what you're telling us and what you're advocating to us, vote yes on August 7th. During the primary. Could you repeat that and tell me if I'm accurate on that?
Yes, you're voting yes to confirm the action by the boards of commissioners in the 3 counties to establish an art authority which will